In a previous episode, we explored the phenomenon of UFO sightings near active volcanoes. In that instance, it was this volcano in Iceland. But the real hotspot for such sightings is over here in North America, just south of the Rio Grande. And this latest video caused an internet eruption of its own. January 24th, 2017. It's early evening in the skies over Mexico City. Webcams around the country live stream images of Mexico's national monuments and cultural treasures. But no one ever expected them to capture this. A small light appears to launch from the top of Popocatépetl volcano, known locally as El Popo. But look closely, the light flies closer and closer to the camera, when suddenly, it explodes into a glowing orb and climbs up into the atmosphere. And look at this. The second camera facing El Popo on a different day. What are these glowing orbs we're seeing at different times around the volcano? And are they related? Patty Contreras, Director of Digital Strategy for Webcams de Mexico, says she wasn't even sure what was going on.
My first thought was, what is happening here? This is not a plane, this is not a drone, what is this thing exploding in the sky? Some people say it is evil things flying around, and the other people say something about UFOs.
In fact, Mexico is 7th in the world when it comes to UFO sightings, with several reported near El Popo each year. But why do these unidentified objects seem to be attracted to volcanoes? According to journalist MJ Banayes, it may be because UFOs need volcanoes for camouflage and energy.
Some people believe that the UFOs are attracted because of all the heat it emits.
Banayes says some believe UFOs are using cracks in the volcano to hide and refuel.
On one side of the volcano is a large vent that often is spewing hot ash and lava. And some people believe this is the point of entry and exit for UFOs. They use the volcano as a sort of base of operations.
From March to May 2021, state cameras over El Popo captured at least 5 instances of lights flashing above the volcano. Are the lights a product of Mother Earth, or are they from Mother someplace else? We turn the footage over to our experts to decide. First, we asked Rich Hoffman to examine the video of the bright light seen over Mexico City. Could it be a real UFO? In this case, Hoffman is skeptical.
The brilliance of this light going over a major city should have yielded all kinds of reports about this huge ball of light. But then you look to see if there's any evidence for any kind of an indication of UFO reports or sightings on that given day, and there are none. It was a big ball of light that came from the volcano, and none of the geologists are talking about it, and none of the people in the city.
So what are we looking at? Hoffman says the location and the light itself yields a clue.
It just so happens that a little bit to the right of that camera, over in the distance, there is Puebla International Airport, where aircraft are supposed to turn on their landing lights when they're below 10,000 feet. They don't use landing lights when they just are landing. They use them when they're also taking off, or if they're also going to be changing their altitude.
By looking at a map of the city and using a little math, Hoffman has more evidence for his theory.
I also did a thing to compute the speed. If it would be coming from the airport, it would be about 6.5 miles away. You put that in terms of the fact that it took 55 seconds before it came just directly above the web camera, and you come up with the fact that it's within about 425 miles per hour, which is typically about the speed of a commercial aircraft. I also used flight radar to be able to see the air traffic coming out of that particular airport, and I was able to actually look at the actual type of aircraft. It's an Airbus 321 that takes off from there that heads over to Cancun.
But what about the video with the floating, glowing orbs? Next, we go to astronomer and video effects designer Mark D'Antonio. Could the objects have come from the volcano itself?
One of the things that I thought about when trying to look at these objects, I was trying to say, are those embers? And the problem is, if they're embers, seem to stay the same brightness for quite a long period of time. And that's the problem I have with it.
What if the camera is simply capturing a light source from the natural world up close, namely the insect variety?
One would think that these could also be fireflies, except that fireflies, they're not like a constant light flying around. They actually flash their light, and then that's it. You see a bright dot followed by a trail, and that's not what we see here. So I don't think they're fireflies at all.
In fact, D'Antonio isn't sure if they're from the natural world at all.
If they're real, they're acting unlike anything I've seen.
Our verdict, we're going with a mixed decision here. While Hoffman makes a solid case for the exploding light being an airplane, we're still not sure what we're seeing in the other video. But one thing is for sure, strange objects near volcanoes appear to be a real phenomenon around the world. So while some strange sightings near El Popo can be explained, we're still on the lookout, and you should be too. It's January 17th, 2019. Art student Kohei Katawaki says he is hiking through the dense woods near his home in Chichibu City, Japan, when he comes upon a figure that is totally alien to him. The footage and photos show what looks like the skeletal remains of some creature, but what? As we zoom in for a closer look, we can see it has strange, long, twisted talons. Its spine is severely bent with a bone structure that looks almost bird-like. But then there's the head, which is more square-shaped, which conjures the image of Hollywood extraterrestrials. And we see 2 rows of yellow humanoid-like teeth. It's no wonder Kohei was compelled to post the video online.
Obviously, one theory about this thing is that it is not of this world. There are things about it that are very E.T. by way of a giraffe. It does sort of have the head shape that a gray alien might have.
As we mentioned earlier, gray aliens are the most frequently cited extraterrestrials in reports of close encounters and abductions, such as the famous Barney and Betty Hill abduction claim from 1961. They described grays as having small, hairless humanoid bodies with large heads and black eyeballs. These remains fit that description somewhat, but there are other possibilities as well.
Maybe this creature is the result of radiation fallout. Japan was the site of 2 nuclear detonations in World War II, and more recently there was the 2011 Fukushima nuclear disaster, which was rated a number 7 on the International Nuclear and Radiological Event Scale, which was the same as Chernobyl.
A lot of speculation on this one. There was even buzz that it was some kind of biological experiment gone wrong. The obvious explanation is that it's a hoax, but gray alien sightings are always a hot topic. So we'll give this figure its day in court. First, we take the footage to anthropologist Kathy Strain, who has researched accounts of gray aliens. So how does this corpse compare?
When people talk about the grays, they usually bring up that there's little ones and there's big ones. And the larger ones have very long necks and they're very skinny. And this doesn't really look like that because the proportion with the long neck and the head isn't correct for it to be one of the taller grays. The legs should be much, much longer. The arms should be much longer. Everything should be scaled upward in size.
What about the nuclear radiation theory?
The chances that the skeletons are still out in the wild is unlikely.
Raccoons eat dead animals, and they are so prevalent in Japan, their overpopulation is causing a national hubbub. In the past decade, the country's raccoon population has tripled. Strange says any corpse decomposing in the woods outside Chichibu since the 2011 Fukushima disaster would have been picked apart by wildlife scavengers. And she points out something else that bothers her.
Its eye sockets are too small to actually have an exterior eyeball. You may be born without physical exterior eyes, but you would still have human-sized eye sockets below the skin.
Microphthalmia is a phenomenon in which someone's born with 1 or 2 eyes that are very small. The eye sockets on this creature are small, but they appear too tiny even for a creature with microphthalmia. Biologist Floyd Hayes is also skeptical that these remains ever belong to a living being.
There are ways in which we could change the morphology of animal, typically by giving it an extra limb or a digit or even a head. But to get something to change so dramatically, like the entire head shape, so it's sticking out on both sides or a much longer neck, that's much more difficult to do.
Hayes is left with one remaining possibility.
I believe this is a hoax.
Given that none of the theories seem to hold up, we tracked down Kohei in Japan. And when pressed, he admitted the alien corpse is a project he created for his studies at Tokyo University of the Arts.
それも、その父親の買ってきたその本っていうのもインスピレーションの一つにあると思いますし、絵本がインスピレーションのもとに結構いっぱいあるのではと思ってまして、やっぱり心のどっか 1%、2% では本気で、宇宙人とかってやっぱいるんじゃないかなって信じてるんですよね。なので。
So, mystery solved. This was a clever hoax. Exciting as it may be to imagine stumbling upon an alien skeleton during a hike in the woods, this figure just doesn't cut the mustard. September 2018, it's a warm night in Tomball, Texas, just north of Houston. Nick Daly and a group of his friends have come home from dinner to their apartment complex when they are astounded by mysterious lights in the sky.
Oh my God.
Take a closer look. 3 teardrop-shaped glowing objects appear to hover in a deliberate, coordinated motion. Nick's friend also begins recording. One thing is for sure, Nick has never seen anything like it.
They were circling around in formation and then come back to a triangle formation. It was incredible.
But as the crowd stands transfixed by the mysterious lights, the UFOs suddenly disappear and then reappear.
Look at him. Look at him. Look at him.
Nick is convinced whatever he witnessed, it's not from this world.
I am ex-military. I was in the United States Air Force. I've never seen flares act like that. I've never seen planes like that. It looks like UFOs to me.
According to author and journalist Alexis Brooks, this is far from the first time mysterious lights have been spotted in the Lone Star State.
These very strange UFO-type lights have been seen as recently as April of 2022 in a town called Kyle, Texas. These lights emanated a sort of orange glow, and local officials came up with no explanation.
These eerie, shimmering lights are similar to the one seen in Tomball, but with one even more mysterious difference.
In the case of the Tomball UFO sequence, we have something that has been referred to as phasing. That some of these craft change their atomic structure so that they appear to be dematerializing and rematerializing. So is Texas rife with UFOs?
One of the first reported UFO incidents in Texas was on April 17, 1897, when a UFO crashed on a farm near Aurora, Texas, with claims of an alien pilot found dead inside. So have those aliens returned? Or is there another way to explain what Nick and his friends saw? Let's ask the experts. First, we ask video forensic expert Michael Primo to examine the footage. Does what we see appear to be authentic?
We examined the file to determine if there were any original file signatures. No known file signatures were identified, and at this low of spatial resolution, it's very difficult to make determinations in reference to CGI. However, when the videos are placed side by side and synchronized, whatever occurred in the sky appears to be consistent across both videos.
Next, we go to aviation expert Tim McMillan. Are we simply looking at conventional aircraft, like an airplane or helicopter?
We're not seeing movements that are consistent with fixed-wing aircraft. What we're looking at here, they're really close, so they're violating how close you want to be to another aircraft. Close proximity, it becomes even more dangerous for a collision.
McMillan is also skeptical these could be another common flying machine.
Drone would match up best for what we've seen so far. But if they're drones, we have to start taking into account the amount of energy it takes. And so for these to be bright lights, they're not going to be able to stay up for very long because they're just going to drain that battery power.
We asked astronomer and video effects editor Mark D'Antonio if the answer is in front of us all along. Could they be sky lanterns?
Sky lanterns are possible, but they don't move the way these did. Sky lanterns are very subject to the wind. What they wouldn't do is sort of circle around each other, and at certain points in the video, they're leaving like a tail almost. That is very telling information.
In fact, D'Antonio believes those streaks are the final piece of the puzzle.
I think that this actually was very likely skydivers with flares.
But if these are nighttime skydivers, why then would they be jumping over Tomball, Texas at night? D'Antonio points to a similar event in Tomball 5 years earlier in 2013, which also featured slowly drifting lights.
There was a high school game, and they did in fact have skydivers with flares skydive into the game. We actually saw the three in the sky, and they separated from each other, and they actually left trails behind them, and that trail could be illuminated smoke from the flare brightness.
While D'Antonio makes a strong case for parachuters with flares, our research hasn't been able to confirm there was a parachute demonstration that night in Tomball. And without definitive visual proof, we think many alternate possibilities are still on the table. Our verdict? For now, we're going to go with unexplained phenomenon. But if you're in Texas, be sure to keep looking up and send us what you see. July 23rd, 2011, in a suburb just outside of Portland, Oregon. Thomas Collins hears strange noises emanating from an abandoned house on a property adjacent to his parents' home. He enlists a good friend to join him in his investigation.
This is Andrew.
When the two discover this.
There it is.
There's a high-pitched howl.
Be cautious.
My camera's having a really hard time picking this up.
Wait.
As they enter the house, they see strange graffiti scrawled on the wall.
We have to make sure there's nothing in here.
They turn off the light. But curiosity gets the best of them.
Hear that? I think it's on the roof. The heck is that? Shoot! Christians.
Let's see that again. Zoomed in and slowed down.
We heard a noise, and that's when we turned and were able to spotlight that creature. But it scared us so much that we just ran. I didn't feel like it wanted to hurt me, but I felt like if it wanted to, it could. And so that was enough to give me a scare.
Although Thomas says he's been back to the property to investigate during daylight hours, he's never encountered the alleged creature again. Field researcher Ken Gerhardt helps us decipher what we just saw.
So this is a video that, for obvious reasons, has gotten a lot of action online. It's very creepy, very reminiscent to a mysterious creature known as the Rake, a hairless humanoid creature standing about 6 feet tall, very cadaverous, gray, pallid skin, deep-set eyes. It's described as being very evil, terrorizing, even murdering people, particularly small children. Back in 1964, there was a gentleman who described this Rake creature as having tormented him and driven him to the point to where he actually had to take his life.
Gerhardt also theorizes that it could be a fabled hairless being from Native American tales.
In the north central United States, we have tales of the Memagweshi, humanoid types of creatures, small in stature, but with large heads, large eyes, very malevolent and evil, very dangerous to humans.
Gerhardt suggests there may be another Native American myth connected to this. Dating back thousands of years, various American Indian tribes have spoken of extraterrestrial visitors they called star people, who bear a striking resemblance to the gray aliens often described in more modern-day alien abduction claims. Since this video was recorded in the wee hours of the night, whatever we're seeing here seems to have a sixth sense for thriving in darkness. You know, nocturnal predators such as owls, cats, and rodents have developed keen hearing, smell, and dark-adapted vision in order to navigate and hunt at night. To assess the actual threat level from this nocturnal creature, we turn to our experts. Professor of Anatomy and Anthropology, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, weighs in on the Managishi claims.
I think that the most telling disqualification is the size. I mean, these are described consistently as little people, and my experience with indigenous populations here, that can be anything from 5 inches tall to 3 feet tall. But my impression was of a more human size being depicted in the video rather than a very small creature.
Anthropologist Kathy Strain has some insights into the Greys theory.
When people talk about the Greys, they usually bring up that there's little ones and there's big ones. And the larger ones have these very long necks and these big, large eyes. And this doesn't really look like that because their eyes are much smaller.
So if it isn't the Managishi or Greys, could it be the fearsome rake? Meldrum sees some red flags.
One thing that struck me about this video was the very orchestrated feel. I've never heard anyone say, "Be cautious."
Be cautious.
Which seemed extremely contrived. And the only characteristics that really are discernible are that it has a pale, high forehead and rounded skull. That could be a mask. And given the popularity of the rake image, there's no shortage of rake masks online.
Next, we bring in forensic video expert Michael Primo to analyze if this video could, in fact, be an elaborate hoax.
This doesn't appear to be anything that was essentially CGI'd or manufactured. The physical aspects of the scene kind of confirm that this appears to be something within this scene, but whether or not it's a paranormal creature, determinations about that simply can't be made from a forensic perspective.
But Primo isn't satisfied, and it doesn't take him long to find more corroborative evidence online.
Upon further investigating, I found evidence that supported that this particular person that created this video had some sort of IMDb profile, specifically in the genre of science fiction. It appears that this person does this professionally in some capacity to create videos like this. It's pretty clear cut here that these videos have been post-produced and they are fake.
Shoot! Shoot! Our verdict? We're calling it a hoax. The scripted feel of the video and the human-like size of the creature are the main giveaways. Though Thomas still swears the encounter was real, we can clearly say this isn't a rake. But abandoned sites still remain a hotbed of supernatural activity. So rest assured, we will continue to explore them.